Hey, Jen Banks here. This is the podcast A is for Adversity, and I'm going to talk about being more intentional about our thoughts and our goals so we can make our lives happen instead of letting life happen to us. This is episode number 22, Understanding. The sponsor for this episode is Kimberly Johnson with Noelle J Designs. Check her out on Instagram and her Etsy shop to see some of her work. I've mentioned many times before that she makes quotes come to life by adding adorable watercolors. She also does other custom work, including watercolor family portraits. You guys, there are only 5 more episodes in this season after this episode. Oh my goodness. So again, another plug for my sponsors. Go check them out before the season ends because I will have new sponsors next season. Season 2 will start in July and I'm rebranding it a little bit. There are big things coming, so stay tuned. Thank you for all the support you've given me thus far. And if you haven't had a chance to review me, go rate me and review me on Apple Podcasts. That seems to be the only one where you can leave reviews. I don't know why other platforms don't have that feature as well. But I know that it sure helps other Apple users if you rate it on iTunes, so please do that. Many listeners have reached out to me through personal messaging apps and have shared their responses and reactions to this podcast, and I really, really appreciate that. Sometimes when you put things out into the world, you don't really know how it's received. And while I know it's important not to base my value on that, it's still good to hear every once in a while, so thank you. I'd like to welcome anyone who's new to the podcast. Thank you for listening and for finding me. Please share this with your friends because that's how we widen our audiences. It's about midnight right now. Earlier I traded productivity for relaxation, but it's all good. Right now is my only time to record, and that's what's most important, so no regrets. That was a lot of intro. So on to understanding. I've found lately that I've been traveling the world of information, so to speak. Every time I find something new to learn about, I realize how much there is to learn about that subject. It's as if I encounter a new world every time I encounter a new subject. It's fascinating just how much there is to learn in the world. As I was organizing my notes for this episode, the song ABC came to me by the Jackson 5. You know the song, ABC, easy as 1, 2, 3. Not going to sing it for you, sorry. I have a couple thoughts that go along with A, B, and C, and then ways we can take action on those thoughts for the 1, 2, and 3. So for letter A stands for amusement park. To me, life is like an amusement park. I just want to go on every single ride. I want to learn something about everything, which reminded me of a quote that says, "Try to learn something about everything and everything about something." And that's by Thomas H. Huxley. I tend to put a lot of things on my plate at once because I'm just so passionate about life and getting the most out of it that I can. B stands for Brooks. And the quote for this one is unknown, but it says, "Brooks become crooked by taking the path of least resistance. So do people." Oftentimes, it's easy to succumb to this sedentary lifestyle. Many of us have office jobs, we're sitting all day, there's a lot of convenience food. But if we just go with the flow, if we just take the path of least resistance, live unintentionally, our lives are going to become much different than we wanted them to, if we would have planned a little better. And then C stands for cookie book. So there's a book that I recommend to you. It's called Cookies, Bite-Sized Life Lessons by Amy Krauss Rosenthal. And throughout the book, she goes through several qualities or attributes of a person and relates it to cookies. So it's a great book. You can see why I like it. The one that I will include right here is the bit about wisdom. It says, "I used to think I knew all there was to know about cookies, but now I realize I only know about a teeny chocolate chip's worth." So again, A, B, C. Amusement park, Brooks, and cookie book. That's how I related those to A, B, C. And now, 1, 2, 3, those are going to go along with the ABCs. So I'll remind you of each as I start. So again, with amusement park, I compared life to an amusement park and how I want to just go on every single ride. The action step for you is to cast a wide net. And I got this idea from Matthew Dix. I mentioned him back in episode M with storytelling. I read his blog every day, and this was one of the posts. He said, "Put things out into the world. You never know what will come of things." He also encouraged his readers to not be too specific or restrictive in their goals. If we are too specific or restrictive, we might miss other things along the way. One of my friends named Brett said, "You can find what you're looking for, but you can't find what you're not looking for." Sometimes we just stumble upon things and we could miss them if we're not in the right mindset or being open to new ideas. This goes back to, again, the amusement park where I want to learn something about everything. There's just things you never knew. And the bigger our net is, the more we can catch and consume and take in. So again, if you want to go on every single ride, cast a wide net. Okay, so just to remind you about letter B, that was Brooks. Brooks become crooked by taking the path of least resistance, and so do people. So to counteract that, number 2, your action step is to take initiative. I have 2 quotes that go along with this. The first is, "If we do not plant knowledge when young, it will give us no shade when we are old," and that's by Lord Chesterfield. The time is always now. Learn things, get out there, experience. You won't regret it. It will serve you for the rest of your life, and you'll be able to look back on it. The other quote is, "There are 2 ways to get to the top of an oak tree. Climb it, or find an acorn and sit on it." Obviously, the first one would be a lot faster. So, seize the day, carpe diem, go for it. In the words of Nike, just do it. Okay, and remember, letter C was with the cookie book, talking about wisdom. So, number 3, your action step is learn from your mistakes. Also the mistakes of others. Sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. I've been talking with Rowan about that lately because sometimes he cries when he's not first up the stairs, or if he didn't get to open his door, all those types of things. And so we've had a lot of discussion about opposites. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn, or sometimes you lose. Sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're sad. Sometimes you're hungry, sometimes you're full. Opposition in all things, right? I've also been thinking about how I'm learning now what people wish they would have known when they were my age. You know, people love to pass on advice and wisdom. So I just imagine how much farther ahead I am, and subsequently how much further ahead the future generations will be, because I'll pass on my advice and it just keeps building. It's so interesting. But life is certainly on-the-job training. Even if we do hear advice or learn from others, really what it comes down to is our own experiences and the way we see things. So the way that this applies to the wisdom aspect of the cookie book is knowledge is learning and wisdom is applied knowledge. Every once in a while I'll do a Google search because I love words, and remember I'm a word nerd and I like to see what things mean. And so online for wisdom it says, "Wisdom takes knowledge and applies it with discernment based on experience, evaluation, and lessons learned. Wisdom is also about knowing when and how to use your knowledge, being able to put situations in perspective and how to impart it to others." Bill Nye says, "Everyone you will ever meet knows something you don't." And if we approach people like that, I feel like we'll have a much better experience. We won't be as judgmental. We'll keep our eyes open, have our nets wide for what we can learn from them. So just to recap, ABC, it's easy as 1, 2, 3. A, amusement park. Life can be like that. If you want to go on every single ride and learn about all the things you can, cast a wide net. B, Brooks. Brooks become crooked by taking the path of least resistance. So do people. Counteract that by taking initiative and going for what you want. Learning about everything you can get your hands on. Not waiting around for people to teach you. And C, cookie book. Go take a look and read what Amy has to say in her book with her bite-sized life lessons. And remember to learn from your mistakes. Apply the knowledge that you've received and never stop learning. Your weekly wisdom is by Eleanor Roosevelt this week. She says, "Great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, shallow minds discuss people." There's so much more to talk about and learn about than petty conversations about others. What ideas do you have to share with the world? Until next week, have a good one. Please remember to share this podcast or review it wherever you get your podcasts. Don't hesitate to reach out to me at Jen Banks Coaching on Instagram or email me at jenbanks16@gmail.com. And as always, thanks for listening.